A Category 5 super typhoon with winds forecast to reach 167 miles per hour is headed directly for United States territory right now. 200,000 Americans live on the Mariana Islands, and out of 302 active weather alerts across the entire country today, only 2 carry the highest severity designation. Both belong to this storm. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what is about to happen and why nobody is talking about it with enough urgency. Welcome to the Space Desk. Let's get into it. Right now, the strongest tropical cyclone on the planet is sitting 737 kilometers east-southeast of Guam, and it is headed straight for American soil. Super Typhoon Sinlaku is tracking northwest at 15 kilometers per hour with maximum sustained winds of 110 knots, that is 127 miles per hour, and a central pressure of 944 millibars. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center has classified it as a super typhoon, a designation reserved for storms with sustained winds exceeding 130 knots. And Sinlaku is not done intensifying. Within the next 24 hours, forecast models project this storm will reach 140 to 145 knots, 160 to 167 miles per hour. That puts it firmly in Category 5 equivalent territory on the Saffir-Simpson scale. The probability of rapid intensification, defined as an 83 km per hour wind speed increase within 36 hours, exceeds 50%. Significant wave heights in the storm's vicinity have already reached 11 meters. That is 36 feet of ocean swell, and the seas are still building toward 30 feet and higher as the storm approaches the island chain. There are 302 active National Weather Service alerts across the entire United States right now, spanning more than 40 states and territories. 22 red flag warnings for critical fire weather, 6 winter storm warnings in the Sierra Nevada for a mid-April blizzard, 36 flood warnings, severe thunderstorm threats across the Central Plains. America is getting hit from every direction today. But out of all 302 of those alerts, only 2 carry the highest severity classification the National Weather Service issues, extreme. Both of them belong to Super Typhoon Sinlaku. Both of them are for a chain of islands in the Western Pacific that most Americans could not find on a map. And that is a problem because those islands are American territory. Guam is an unincorporated United States territory in the Western Pacific Ocean. Its population is approximately 153,836 people, according to the 2020 census. Directly north of Guam sits the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, a chain that includes Saipan with roughly 48,200 residents, Tinian with about 3,136, and Rota with approximately 2,527. Every single one of these people is a United States citizen. This is U.S. soil, governed by U.S. law, protected by U.S. forces. And together, approximately 200,000 Americans are sitting directly in the path of a Category 5 super typhoon right now. These islands occupy what meteorologists call Typhoon Alley. They bear the highest typhoon strike risk of any U.S. state or territory, and it is not even close. The Marianas sit along the Mariana Subduction Zone, one of the most tectonically active plate boundaries on Earth, where the Pacific Plate dives beneath the Philippine Sea Plate at a rate of several centimeters per year. This is the same tectonic boundary that created the Mariana Trench, the single deepest point on the surface of the Earth, plunging nearly 11,000 meters below sea level. The geology that made these islands also makes them seismically active and volcanically dynamic. Living here means living on one of the most geologically volatile chains of rock on the planet, and the most active tropical cyclone basin in the world. On April 12th, the government of Guam and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands both declared emergency status. Government offices, schools, and courts closed across the territory. The Guam Department of Education began preparations to open emergency shelters for displaced residents. Joint Region Marianas declared tropical cyclone condition of readiness. 3 on April 11th, placing every military installation across Guam and the CNMI at heightened alert. The United States Coast Guard has urged immediate public action. Joint Task Force Micronesia remains postured for defense support of civil authorities. These islands know exactly what is coming, because they have been through it before. And that is exactly what makes this so alarming. Guam is not just home to 200,000 civilians. It hosts some of the most strategically critical military infrastructure the United States has anywhere on Earth. Andersen Air Force Base is the most important American air base west of Hawaii. It is one of only 4 Air Force bomber forward operating locations in the world, and the only base in the entire Western Pacific permanently capable of servicing heavy strategic bombers, the B-1B Lancer, the B-2 Spirit, and the B-52 Stratofortress. The facility has dual 2-mile-long runways, massive fuel reserves, and enormous munitions storage facilities. It serves as the primary forward logistics hub for American military operations spanning the Southwest Pacific and the Indian Ocean. There is nothing else like it between Hawaii and the Middle East. Naval Base Guam and the newly established Marine Corps Base Camp Blaz further expand the American military footprint on the island. In the current geopolitical environment, with tensions in the Indo-Pacific running at levels not seen in decades, Guam has become the linchpin of United States Pacific Command's force projection capability. There is no replacement for this island. There is no backup facility. If Andersen goes offline, American strategic bomber capability in the Western Pacific goes with it. And when Typhoon Mawar struck Guam in 2023, 98% of the entire island lost electrical power, including Andersen Air Force Base. The most important military air base in the Western Pacific went completely dark. The Guam Power Authority has since acknowledged a critical shortfall in power generation supply, with the 2 largest capacity generator units on the island, Cabris 1 and Cabris 2, being 50 years old. That is the infrastructure that is about to take another direct hit from a storm that could arrive with Category 5 equivalent winds. Here is what makes Sinlaku unusual before you even get to the forecast track and the damage potential. The Western Pacific typhoon season peaks between May and October. The basin generates an average of 26 tropical cyclones per year, the most of any tropical cyclone basin on Earth. But April is supposed to be one of the quietest months. Most years, there is minimal tropical activity this early. Sinlaku is the earliest super typhoon to form in this basin since Typhoon Malakas in 2022. Its rapid intensification during a period when such intensification is climatologically uncommon makes it a statistical outlier that demands an explanation. The explanation is one that keeps coming up in storm after storm, season after season. Research has documented a clear and accelerating trend in the northwestern Pacific. Typhoon intensity has increased 12 to 15% on average since 1977. The annual number of high potential threat tropical cyclones has increased 22% per decade over a 41-year study period. The primary driver is weakened vertical wind shear in the tropical western North Pacific, which is itself linked to progressive warming of the Tibetan Plateau, one of the most significant large-scale atmospheric shifts of the last half-century. Western Pacific sea surface temperatures are currently running above normal, providing exactly the kind of oceanic fuel that drives rapid intensification. ENSO, the El Niño Southern Oscillation, is transitioning from neutral toward El Niño conditions. The latest Oceanic Niño Index reading was negative 0.16 for the January through March 2026 period, warming from negative 0.55. Model ensembles unanimously project moderate to strong El Niño by mid-June 2026, with some forecasts suggesting potentially record-breaking warmth in the equatorial Pacific. Under moderate climate change scenarios, average typhoon intensity in this basin is expected to increase an additional 14% by 2100. Sinlaku may not be an anomaly at all. It may be an early signal of what the 2026 typhoon season has in store for the Western Pacific, and for the Americans who live in the middle of it. The Mariana Islands have recent devastating experience with storms in exactly this class. In October 2018, Super Typhoon Yutu struck Tinian and Saipan as the strongest typhoon ever recorded to impact the Mariana Islands. Tied as the second strongest tropical cyclone to strike United States territories by both wind speed and barometric pressure in modern records, Yutu's peak winds reached 280 kilometers per hour, 175 miles per hour, with a minimum central pressure of 900 hectopascals. The storm destroyed approximately 6,000 homes. It toppled 962 power poles across Tinian and Saipan. Both islands lost electricity completely, and the outages lasted months. 2 women were killed on Saipan. Over 120 people were injured. A presidential major disaster declaration was issued. Before Yutu, there was Pongsona. In December of 2002, Super Typhoon Pongsona hit Guam with sustained winds and gusts reaching 232 kilometers per hour, 144 miles per hour. The storm destroyed 1,300 homes outright, severely damaged 1,825 more, and lightly damaged another 4,800 residences. The entire island lost power and telephone service simultaneously. Total damage exceeded $700 million in 2002 dollars, approximately $1.22 billion when adjusted to 2026 values. Remarkably, despite the scale of destruction, no one was killed directly by the storm. And then there was Mawar. Just 3 years ago in 2023, 98% of Guam without electrical power. The same Guam Power Authority that has since publicly acknowledged a critical shortfall in generation capacity. The same electrical grid that depends on the Cabras 1 and Cabras 2 generator units, which are 50 years old and running well past their engineered service life. Sinlaku's forecast intensity at closest approach to the Marianas, Category 3 to 4 equivalent and possibly higher if the storm does not weaken as projected, places it in the same destructive class as Yutu, Pongsona, and Mawar. The infrastructure that failed catastrophically under each of those storms has not been replaced. It has not been significantly upgraded. It is the same grid, the same generators, the same vulnerability, facing a new storm. As of 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, April 12th, here is the timeline every resident of the Mariana Islands is watching. Sinlaku's outer rain bands will begin affecting the islands in approximately 20 hours. Tropical storm force winds, 40 to 60 knots, are expected to arrive by late Monday afternoon, local Chamorro Standard Time, roughly 36 hours from now. Typhoon force winds of 75 knots or greater are forecast to hit by Tuesday morning local time, approximately 48 hours out. Conditions should begin improving by Wednesday, roughly 72 hours from now. The National Weather Service office in Tiyan, Guam, has issued typhoon warnings rated extreme for Rota, Tinian, and Saipan, meaning typhoon force winds are expected as early as Tuesday morning, with seas building beyond 30 feet. Guam is under a typhoon watch with a severe designation, meaning typhoon conditions are possible within 48 hours. Tropical storm warnings cover Guam and its coastal waters. A flood watch extends through Wednesday morning for all 4 islands, with rainfall totals of 15 to 20 inches expected for Guam and Rota, and 8 to 15 inches for Saipan and Tinian. Storm surge will compound the flooding risk across every coastline. Forecast guidance suggests Sinlaku may thread the gap between Rota and Saipan as a Category 3 to 4 equivalent storm, but at this range, small track adjustments of just a few dozen kilometers could dramatically alter which islands receive the eye wall and the most destructive winds. The compound weather pattern we flagged on this channel earlier this week is now fully engaged across the country. 302 active alerts, blizzards in the Sierra, fire weather across the southwest, flooding in multiple states. But the most dangerous alert in America right now is not on the mainland. It is 7,000 miles to the west, bearing down on islands that most of the country has already forgotten about. And while all of that is unfolding from above, something happened below. On April 12th, the same day Super Typhoon Sinlaku was upgraded and began its final approach toward the Marianas, a magnitude 5.0 earthquake struck the pagan region of the northern Mariana Islands at a depth of 226 kilometers. Pagan is part of the same volcanic arc as Saipan, Tinian, and Rota, the islands currently under typhoon warning. This is not an isolated tremor. A magnitude 5.3 earthquake hit the same pagan region just 10 days earlier, on April 2nd. The Mariana subduction zone has shown elevated seismic activity throughout early 2026. And a separate magnitude 5.0 earthquake was recorded near the east coast of Honshu, Japan, on the same day, reflecting broader seismic unrest across the entire Western Pacific Plate boundary system. There is no established causal link between a typhoon's atmospheric pressure and deep focus earthquakes at 226 kilometers. Some speculation circulating online has attempted to connect low-pressure systems to seismic triggers, but no peer-reviewed causal mechanism exists that would link a storm's pressure fail to activity at that depth. The Mariana subduction zone is one of the most seismically active regions on Earth, regardless of what the atmosphere is doing above it. But the coincidence matters, not because the typhoon caused the earthquake, but because it illustrates exactly why these islands face a kind of compound risk that almost no other American community deals with. The Marianas sit on one of the most active tectonic plate boundaries on the planet and in the most active tropical cyclone basin on Earth. They are being threatened simultaneously from above, a Category 5 Super Typhoon closing in from the east, and from below, where the subduction zone is shifting beneath their feet. That is not a metaphor. That is what 200,000 Americans are facing on Tuesday morning. Over the next 48 hours, there are several critical variables that will determine how bad this gets. First is track wobble. At this distance, small adjustments to Sinlaku's path will determine which islands receive the eye wall, the zone of maximum destruction where the strongest winds and heaviest rainfall concentrate. The difference between a near miss and a catastrophic direct hit on Saipan or Rota could come down to a few dozen kilometers of track shift in the next day and a half. Second is intensity at closest approach. The current forecast calls for Sinlaku to weaken somewhat as it nears the islands, arriving as a Category 3 to 4 equivalent storm. But if that weakening does not materialize, if the storm holds its peak intensity longer than projected, the islands could take winds exceeding what Super Typhoon Yutu delivered in 2018. That would be the worst-case scenario for infrastructure that has already proven, repeatedly, that it cannot withstand storms of this magnitude. Third is the power grid. The Guam Power Authority's 50-year-old Cabras generators are the single biggest vulnerability on the island. If they fail, and Typhoon Mawar proved in 2023 that they absolutely can, recovery is measured in months, not days and not weeks. The military response from Joint Task Force Micronesia will be critical in the immediate aftermath, but response and recovery are not the same thing as resilience, and these islands have been asking for resilience investments for years. And then there is the bigger picture. If this is what April looks like in the Western Pacific, a Category 5 super typhoon fueled by above normal sea surface temperatures during an ENSO transition toward El Nino, then the 2026 typhoon season could be one of the most active on record for this basin. The models are already pointing in that direction. The ocean heat content is there, the atmospheric conditions are favorable. Sinlaku is not the end of this story. It may very well be the beginning of a season that tests these islands again and again. If Super Typhoon Sinlaku were bearing down on Miami or Houston or Tampa Bay, it would dominate every newscast, every front page, every social media feed in the entire country right now. There would be mandatory evacuations, round-the-clock cable news coverage, and federal resources staged days in advance. 200,000 Americans on the Mariana Islands deserve exactly the same attention, exactly the same urgency, and exactly the same resources. We will be tracking this storm closely as it develops, and we will bring you updates as conditions change over the next 48 hours.